Joining me now is Katie Paris, founder of Red, Wine, and Blue, an advocacy group that opposes Issue 1. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Paris. Let's talk about this. The polls are very clear. Do people support state Issue 1, which is, I believe, the issue about, putting abortion rights in the Constitution? Yes, it's about 2/3 of people do. Do you support the abortion rights amendment itself? 58%. Sorry. I'm sorry. 58% oppose Issue 1, which is the one that would make the threshold higher, and 2/3 about the same support abortion rights. Are you concerned that this won't pass, though, because of turnout and because it's summer?
Well, that is certainly what Republicans are counting on. And look, it's confusing, right? I mean, we've got to vote no in August before we vote yes in November to protect our reproductive rights. And there is no question that Ohioans do not support giving ourselves less of a voice. We would like to continue to have access to citizen-led ballot initiatives, as we have for 112 years, but just ahead of us passing reproductive rights, because Republicans know that we're going to do that too. All the polls show, like you said, about 2/3 of voters really support protecting our reproductive rights. 85% of independent women support this reproductive rights initiative. So they know that they will lose if it can pass under the current rules, which would just require a simple majority rules. Yeah. One person, one vote. So they're trying to change the rules. And I think that they know that they have something to worry about because those polls are very bad for them and turnout is very bad for them. They were expecting to have a quiet election in August where no one would notice. And instead, 700,000 people in Ohio have voted already. That is hundreds of thousands more than we saw who had voted early in the election that they held last year in August. And it's actually 150,000 more votes even than we saw in the May primary, which was a big deal last year in Ohio. It was the U.S. Senate primary, and it was a very competitive race. And we're even seeing more voting on that in August on an issue, on a ballot initiative issue. So I think that that is leading to some desperation on their side, to be sure.
And obviously there's a United States Senate race in November that would be on the same ballot with the abortion rights measure. So, I think Republicans probably understand that if you get more women and younger people to the polls, that's probably not good for them overall, right, in terms of their political desires. But has anyone expressed any reservation on the Republican side to you that you know of? Because it does feel like these are a bunch of men who are trying to strip women of their rights against the will of 2/3 of the state.
Yeah, no question about it. This is not really a partisan issue. I mean, people want to be able to have a voice in our democracy. And so it's interesting, driving across the state, sometimes you'll actually see Republican signs in someone's yard, even in some cases, Trump signs. But then they'll have a vote no on Issue 1. Because they want to be able to have a direct voice in our democracy. So there's no question that this is bringing over lots of independents. It's a coalition, a cross-partisan coalition, and I think that that is making the vote yes people, the people who want us to have a little less of a voice, they want to take away majority rule, that's making them very nervous. So we're seeing a lot of disinformation out here on the ground, unfortunately, Joy.
Has there been any reaction, or what's your reaction to the fact that the women in Texas who sued the state of Texas, because in many cases they could have died or been left unable to ever have children again because their state essentially says even if you're going to give birth to a child with a non-formed cranium or a child that is already dead, you have to do it, even if you're a child yourself. They have won at least so far, but the attorney general there is still suing. He still wants people to be forced to essentially die in childbirth. What has been your reaction to kind of that playing out in another state?
I mean, the issue of reproductive freedom is going to continue to be an issue until we get our rights back. I mean, and it's because we are seeing stories like this play out. So many women, we have had complications in our pregnancies, or someone we know has, many people we know have. This is deeply personal. It's inhumane. Amanda Zarowski, one of the leading women in that case, she came and spoke with the women of Red, Wine, and Blue. There wasn't a dry eye in the House, and it also stiffened our backs because she doesn't want to see Ohio or any other state treat women the way that she's been treated in Texas. And so we are standing by her. We are standing up for her. And we're not going to let that happen anywhere else. And until politicians and pundits get the message that abortion is going to continue to be a motivating factor in these elections until we get their rights back, they're going to keep getting these elections all wrong.
Katie Paris, good luck. So just to remind people, because I had it switched around, people are being asked by you to vote no in this election tomorrow so that they can vote yes in November. I want to make sure that I did not switch that around. Is that correct? That's correct.
You got it right. You got to vote no, say no to taking our voices away, say no to all the disinformation. Vote no tomorrow. Absolutely. Vote no. Thank you for getting it right, Joy.
Thank you very much, Katie Paris. Appreciate you, and good luck.
Katie Paris, founder of Red Wine and Blue, a group of suburban women working to counter right-wing extremism, who also opposed ballot issue 1. Ms. Paris, thanks for being here tonight. I suppose congratulations are in order. This is an issue that you guys fought hard for. Can you talk to me about what women were telling you about ballot issue 1 and what motivated them to go to the polls in Ohio, a state that is reddish, if not red entirely?
Oh, well, women were very clear in their rejection of extremism in this election. And there's no doubt that our desire, that our demand to get our reproductive rights back is a huge motivating force in this election. But voters, suburban women, are who we represent, and it's just incredible to see these election results tonight. You know, counties in the suburbs that actually went for Republicans in the U.S. Senate and governor's race in 22 are voting overwhelmingly no tonight. And we're also even seeing that in our sort of exurban, more rural counties, too. It's just incredible. These counties, some of them, J.D. Vance won by 60, 70%. They are voting no, too. And in my own county, Cuyahoga County, which is one of our urban counties where Cleveland is, but also has tons of suburbs, this is one of the places where we had to go big. And in 2022, our turnout just wasn't enough to carry the state. But we are seeing a dramatic difference tonight. Just turnout is blowing everyone out of the water, everyone's expectations. It is good to be an Ohioan tonight. And I think the ramifications are huge, not just for the rejection of extremism in Ohio, but Republicans, they have gone too far all across this country. It's not just Trump. And this is a big message against extremism tonight.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, certainly abortion seems to be a driver that continues to bring Democrats, independents, and some Republicans out to the polls. But this was beyond just that. These were sort of anti-democratic tactics that were being embraced to make it harder for voters to get their voices heard. And I wonder, you know, how that fit into, you know, the portfolio of reasons why people were going out. I'm wondering if you heard, not just from women, but for independents who understood this to be what it is, which was, again, a way of muzzling, if not censoring, the voices of Ohioans who have a tough time getting legislation passed, given the gerrymandered nature of the state.
It was very blatant. At Red Wine and Blue, you know, actually a third of our members are former Republicans and independents. And if Republicans keep trying things like this, those numbers are just going to continue to grow. This was absolutely not just Democrats rejecting extremism. This was independents and Republicans as well. It was so transparently a power grab and just going way, way too far. And, you know, not only that, I think that they really expected, hey, you know, we're just going to sneak this through. This will be a low turnout election. No one will notice. But then they saw these huge numbers coming out in early voting. So they cranked up their disinformation machine. It has been a shame to see what we have seen across the state in the last few weeks. There has been huge attempts to drive fear into the hearts of voters. Even my group and me personally, we've been targeted as these targets of disinformation. But what we've seen tonight is that that doesn't work, that voters see through the disinformation. There has been backlash to that. I have had women across the state telling me that it has just motivated them not just to vote, but to reach out to their friends and to their family and make sure that everybody is voting no in this election. This is about our democracy. It's about our values. It's about being able to have a voice in our state. And that went way beyond any partisan lines.
Can I ask, I mean, are you as bullish on the passage of the ballot referendum in November that would enshrine a woman's right to choose into the state constitution? The numbers track almost evenly in terms of support for that with opposition to ballot issue 1. Do you think that this is the same sort of turnout will be the case in November?
I have never been more excited to vote yes in November, and that is what I am hearing from voters across the state tonight. You know, Red, White, and Blue was a big part of this amazing coalition across the state collecting signatures. You might know we collected 710,000 signatures to put reproductive freedom on the ballot. That effort started in March. Every single voter that we spoke to, we said, okay, you're signing to put reproductive freedom on the ballot in November, but first you got to vote no in August. Then you get to vote yes in November. And we're just so excited for that opportunity tonight. And we know every poll shows, I mean, I don't trust every poll, but every poll from everyone shows that 57, 58, 59% of Ohio voters will support this reproductive rights amendment. I mean, some of these numbers are just incredible. 85% of independent women support the reproductive rights ballot initiative. So yes, I'm very excited. I'm proud to be an Ohioan tonight, and I do expect good results in November.
Well, congratulations on your work tonight. Katie Paris, founder of Red, Wine, and Blue. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Ohio resident Katie Paris, the founder of Red, Wine, and Blue, a group of suburban women working to counter right-wing extremism that also opposed ballot issue 1. So, Ali, first to you. More than 3 million ballots were cast, far exceeding everyone's expectations. Talk to us about what you saw there on the ground.
Yeah, Andrea, it's a stunning number. We saw turnout already high for yesterday morning when we started out covering Election Day. Of course, to see more than 3 million ballots cast is a real sign of the momentum on the ground here. I spoke with one couple as they were walking out of a polling place yesterday, and I asked them, are you people that vote regularly here in every election? They said no. This one, between media coverage and the issues that were specifically at play here, had them coming out on a Tuesday in August. Again, a real sign of the continued energy on the ground. I think what's important when you look at the results, though, the fact that 57% of Ohioans came out to say no to issue 1, which would have raised the threshold and thusly made it harder for them to pass an abortion protection amendment into their constitution come November. It's telling and it's important, and it's why I asked the Secretary of State, Republican Frank LaRose, if this fell, would he regret the approach that he took here? Watch that exchange. If it fails, any regrets about the approach?
No, it's better to fight and lose than never fight at all when it's a worthwhile cause.
I think what's fascinating, though, Andrea, is that even as Republicans like LaRose say they're doubling down, it's clear when you look at this in the larger picture of the post-Dobbs environment, the fact that you've seen red states now in Ohio, but before that in places like Kansas, voting on the side of abortion access, it's a real wake-up call, I think, for Republicans.
And Katie, talk to us about how you and the mostly women who mobilized this campaign. It's the middle of the summer. They called it quickly. It was a Republican legislature, assuming that they could find people, being asleep and not coming out to the polls.
We were not asleep, and we are so hopeful today in Ohio. Andrea, people were setting off fireworks in some neighborhoods last night, just exuberant about these results. And the way we did it is we organized, and this started back in March, when we knew that this special election was a possibility, but not a certainty. And it started then because we needed to collect signatures to put reproductive freedom on the ballot in November. And Red, Wine, and Blue was a part of the coalition that collected over 710,000 signatures to do that. That meant we were talking to a lot of voters every single day. And every single voter, we said, you're signing this to put this on the ballot. But something else we need to do in the meantime is vote no on August 8th. And people listened and they repeated it back to us. So we did it by organizing. We were incredibly motivated to protect our democracy, to stand up for our state and our ability to have a voice here. And yes, to protect reproductive freedom. And you saw that in the results, the enormous turnout. We see swings in some of these suburban counties based on how much they went for J.D. Vance, the Republican, in last year's U.S. Senate race, comparing to the margin by which they voted no, we're seeing swings of up to 25 points, which actually makes sense when you look at that win margin of 14 points in a state that Trump won by 8. So I think Republicans are being sent a big message here. And guess what? It's not just about Trump. It's about the extremism that they are trying to sell, and people don't want it. And they can't just hide behind Trump because they did this all by themselves.
Well, Peter Alexander, from the White House perspective, we all know that you don't win the White House without winning Ohio. That's been true for Democrats for certain. So what is the president, what are his people saying?
Well, I think the sense is that this is bigger than Ohio. This is now a national issue. Think about it. You're in the middle of August here, and what was abortion rights was not technically on the ballot. This was what would have been a little noticed fight over an arcane constitutional fight, but instead they brought out more than 3 million people in that state right now. And the president, the White House, the DNC, they're all thrilled by this. The president saying that this measure was, in his words, a blatant attempt to weaken voters' voices, to further erode the freedom of women to make their own health care decisions. He added here, democracy won. This is part of his quote. And he speaks to this, that it speaks volumes that Ohioans showed up in an off-year August election, that their vote will help ensure that the people's power isn't diminished in forthcoming elections, including a critical referendum on whether women in Ohio will have the freedom to make their own health care decisions. Andrea, the evidence just keeps piling up as it relates to the issue of abortion rights. Look at what happened not too far back in Kansas on this issue. The state Supreme Court in Wisconsin getting a Democrat judge to help fill out the court there as well. And looking ahead to 2024, Democratic activists right now are looking to as many as 10 states where they want to put abortion protections on the ballot in some form, which really could surge their voters, including states like Arizona, where it's not just going to be a key presidential race, a Senate race, but also this issue as well. Florida, another state that could see this on the ballot.
And Katie, how do you keep this momentum going into November?
We are just so excited that we finally get to vote yes now. You know, we didn't want to have this special election. This was forced on us by our Republican supermajority state legislature. They charged us as taxpayers close to $20 million to hold the election. We wanted to be organizing for reproductive freedom in November, but, you know, I think that this all is going to backfire on them because during this election process, we were talking about reproductive freedom. We talked about how you've got to vote no in August before you can vote yes in November. So we have been out there organizing friend to friend among family members, and we're just going to keep on rolling. There's so much momentum now. People are so excited. We have so much confidence going forward, but we also know, because Republicans are saying it very loudly, I don't get why they don't take a lesson here, but they're doubling down. And so we know that we've got our work cut out for us. We saw the disinformation and how bad it got here in the lead up to yesterday's vote. We expect for that to continue and ramp up once again. So we're ready to work, and we are excited to finally get to say yes to reproductive freedom in Ohio.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for being with us.